There are stories that we tell ourselves that are not true. They could be stories about who we are and what we're capable of. They could be stories about what the world is like, but we're constantly telling ourselves stories. We are storytelling creatures, even when they are stories we tell ourselves.
Welcome to Supernormalized, the podcast where we challenge the conventional, break boundaries, and normalize the seemingly supernatural. Join me, CJ, as we explore less uncharted realms of existence and unravel the mysteries of life experience. My treasured listeners, if you have a life story or healing modality or unique knowledge that you'd love to share, reach out to me at supernormalized, that's supernormalized with a Z, at proton.me. Let's together embrace acceptance of the supernatural and unusual as what it really is, completely normal. Today on Supernormalized, we have Kirsten Weiss, an author exploring paranormal mysteries and spiritual growth in her novels. She writes about mysteries. She writes about murder mysteries. She writes about spiritual growth in certain sorts of ways that actually help you as a reader to engage with the character and at the end of it, come out changed. I think you'll enjoy this episode. I certainly did. It's a short one because it's very, very dense. And yeah, it was fun. All right, now, enjoy the show. Welcome to Supernormalized, Kirsten Weiss. Kirsten, you contacted me because you're actually a writer of novels that involve, would you call like the supernatural, the paranormal, and you do it in such a way as to invite people in to gain their own understanding of such experiences for the greater benefit of themselves. Is that correct?
Yes, I hadn't thought of it quite that way, but I do think the paranormal it's a universal experience, but in some ways it's also a very personal experience. We're always trying to interpret it through our own personal lens. So it is a very unique thing that happens to people, even though you hear other people will have similar stories. It's unique to every individual.
Okay. Are you a magical practitioner yourself?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And what arm of magic do you do? I mean, I'm personally a chaos magician, even though I don't like that word, but
I'm kind of more of a haphazard magician, I think. I've studied a lot of different traditions. I love ceremonial magic, but I'm too lazy to do it. It takes a lot of work. So I think I guess I'd be more of a hedge witch if you were going to define it.
Yeah, okay.
Like the old hedge witches are casting their little spells and little potions and stuff. Kitchen witchery and a lot of tarot. That
A lot of
was pretty
tarot.
much my gateway drug into the world of magic.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Same for me too. I remember when I first was starting to look into all of this stuff, and I found some books. And my first book was Magic in Theory and Practice with Crowley,
It's a
and
great book.
it is a great book, and it blew my mind at the time. But reading it, I was like, oh, there's some weird stuff in here that I don't agree with, because I did have a bit of like clutching at pure Christianity type going on in the background.
Hmm.
Um, but then that also led me to the Toth deck and picking up that and starting doing my own readings, and it was great. Some of the things that came out of it were really, really good. But for me, I did discover that there is also a bit of a sinister streak to that deck, and how it actually
Yes.
and it can reveal things to you or drive you in certain directions that you don't expect if you aren't being really clear with your questions. So, what decks do you use when it comes to tarot?
My favorite is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck.
Okay,
Um,
classic.
yeah, it is a classic and it's a model for so many decks today. And I think Pamela Coleman Smith, the artist,
Yeah.
she did such a wonderful job reinterpreting tarot for the modern world, but she really respected its original roots in the Renaissance. Apparently, she studied the old Renaissance texts in the British Museum quite extensively. And even though she was doing this for the, you know, Waite, who was a member of the Golden Dawn, just like her, and they had their 20th century views, she still was very true to the original meanings, I think.
Have you always been a writer as well? I mean, or is that something that just started to come out in a stage in your life?
I started writing when I was a little kid,
Yeah.
very badly, of course, but it was a start. And it was something I always wanted to do. And I loved reading mystery novels. I loved Agatha Christie and Sherlock Holmes. And of course, as a child, Nancy Drew. And I wanted to write, but it didn't seem super practical. So I went down an alternate career path and ended up doing international development work, microcredit specifically. And but I was doing a lot of writing when I was overseas and getting more and more interested in the more supernatural and superstitious beliefs and folklore of the countries I was living in and working in. And now I've kind of gotten off track because I forgot what the question is. Sorry.
I was actually getting to what led you to writing. So
Oh, yeah. Well, in my work, I was the one who always wanted to write the article about the client who did something amazing and nobody else did. So I did a lot of that. And then when I came home to the States, I had a really difficult time getting work, restarting a career there because my work overseas had been so strange. And finally, in a fit of desperation, I started writing. And much to my surprise, it turned into a full-time job. So it was wonderful. It's a dream come true, really.
yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. So you've had paranormal experiences yourself that led you into the connection to the supernatural as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was interested in the supernatural before I started having more paranormal experiences, but I have had some very odd experiences, seeing things that really shouldn't have been there. And my sister and I were sharing twice, we were sharing a hotel room, and I saw her on two separate occasions, spaced years apart, get up out of the bed next to me and walk towards the bathroom and never come back. And then I realized she was still in the bed next to me. So at first I thought it was a ghost because the first hotel room was a little creepy, but the next hotel room was quite nice. And since it happened twice, I figured it can't be two ghosts in two different hotel rooms doing the same thing. So I think she might have been having an out of body experience,
Mm.
which she rejects this vehemently. She's not into that. But I'm like, I saw what I saw. I was definitely awake. First time, I thought I might have been asleep, but I was pretty sure I was awake. But the second time, I was definitely awake.
Yeah, yeah, no, I can relate to that. I actually had an experience myself way back when where I was having an afternoon nap, and the next moment I am walking up the driveway, which was above where I lived. And I'm walking on the driveway thinking, wait, I don't remember how I got here. And a car is coming up, so I step off the driveway so the car can pass. And then I open my eyes and I realize I'm laying in my bed and also in the driveway at the same time. So I'm bilocating. So,
Wow.
and I'm thinking, what is going on here? And I started blinking really hard because I sat up in my bed and I was blinking really hard to make myself reset. And I reset back into my bed and went, I don't know what the hell that was. I didn't know what that was at the time, but later on I read about it and it was bilocation. But in
I
the
think that
same,
would have been very unnerving for me to
well,
wake up to that.
it was shocking. It was unnerving for sure. But maybe that was what was happening for her. But part of her wasn't realizing that she might have been stepping out, maybe even to go for
Yeah.
a midnight tinkle or something. She's going to the bathroom. So, okay, you've started writing these books to actually help people engage with, the spiritual and the supernatural in certain different ways, and they're mystery novels also at the same time. What spawned you to go sort of like in that sort of direction to pretty much roll it all together?
Well, part of it was just I love writing mystery novels. I've always written mystery novels, so it's a natural format. But I think also if you're interested in spirituality, there are a lot of questions that you need to ask, and it is sort of a quest. So I think having the quest to solve a crime, on paper, and the quest to figure out these bigger issues, there's a certain parallelism in theme there. So I think they do go together, or they
Mm.
can go together if you want to make them go together.
Yeah, right, right, right. Can you share more about your upcoming book, Legacy of the Witch, and the journey of the protagonist towards awakening and spiritual development? I mean, is that like a is that like a bit of a story about yourself at the same time?
Uh, well, it is in the sense that, so I'm 56 years old.
Yeah.
And when I turned 50, I started going through the whole midlife crisis and the hormones and which just made everything more intense. And I suffered from severe depression. And what I realized was I was getting really depressed and upset about things that actually had been bothering me for quite some time, but I'd been suppressing. Like things that bother you, you're like, oh, okay, just whatever, I'll worry about it later. And so it really forced me to confront the things I'd done that I wasn't so happy with, things about my past that I wasn't happy with, the way they were affecting my present or my behavior in the present. And she's kind of going, my protagonist, April, is going through a similar transition. She's lost her husband. She has a lot of regrets about her behavior in marriage. She could have done better. Things weren't good, basically. And there's a lot of what ifs. What if I'd done something different? And also I've got she's in her mid 40s, so she's kind of midlife as well. And she's looking at what do I want my future to look like? What do I want my present to look like? And who do I have to be to make that happen?
Mm.
So I think that's a similarity. That's a challenge that I went through. And I think it's something that a lot of people go through, not just at midlife. We go through a lot of threshold points in our lives when we decide to get married, have kids, graduate from college. These are all opportunities for us to look back at what we've done and how we got there and try to figure out what we want our future to look like.
Yeah, it sounds like a point of life reconciliation in some way, finding closure, and then
Yes.
from that point, being able to grow.
Yes.
Mm, mm.
So it's those threshold points can be very painful, but they can be wonderful opportunities if people choose to seize them as well, I think. And there's a big spiritual component to that as well. The who am I and who do I want to be in this world? And what does it all mean? Does it mean anything? These are questions I think we frequently find ourselves asking.
Mm, mm. And so your characters in your books actually do ask these questions in a similar sort of way, which helps other people to identify with them.
I hope so. Again, I think I don't want to say it's universal. Everybody's different, but I think everybody's kind of the same too in a lot of ways. And I think we do reach these questions and these points where things aren't working the way we thought they would, and the ideas that we had aren't working out the way they should work out. And the misbeliefs that we have, something happens in the past, and we layer our interpretation onto it, which may or not be maybe correct or not. But whether it's correct or not, it influences how we behave going forward because we have this story in our head. So a lot of it's about misbeliefs, the misbeliefs we've
Misbeliefs.
conjured up,
Right, right.
and how that's affecting our lives today.
Yeah, right, right. So it's like a discovery of the mask and then what it means to you.
Yes, yes, very
Yes.
well put.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm certain we all do go through that, and some people actually get a chance to take the mask off and then move forward from that. So that's a powerful thing. So what motivated you to create an interactive mystery school series? And what can readers expect from engagement with that series?
Well, reader, so I should explain. So the book includes a app for the UnTarot, which is an oracle deck from the Mystery School, and it also includes little worksheets that the Mystery School and emails that the Mystery School is sending to the protagonist, April. So readers can just read the story and ignore all that if they want, or they can actually engage with it. They can download the worksheets to work through them themselves. They can sign up for emails to receive. They can get the app on their phone, which again, it's included in the book, and they can play with the UnTarot, and they can engage with it as deeply or as they want, or not at all.
Mm,
So I hope it's something that people will have fun with and that will help them think about their lives. I think that's one of the beautiful things about a tarot deck or a tarot reading is that it kind of takes you out of your normal life for 15 minutes, and you get to look at the situation you're in from a different perspective, from the perspective of the cards. And it can be very helpful.
mm. Yeah, I find myself when I step into that liminal space, that's when extra answers that can come from not being caught up in the pinball of life. That's when things actually really do open up.
Yeah, or just caught up in the usual thought processes. I tend to ruminate, and so I go over the same thoughts over and over and over again, like a little hamster in the wheel, and it's not helpful. One circuit of the wheel is enough, but you just keep running the same old tracks. And when you do a tarot reading, it takes you out of that track. Suddenly you're somewhere different and you're thinking different things, and it can be really helpful.
Yeah, so it can seed other opportunities that you can grasp and other ideas and ways of being. Then I can see that for sure. Yeah. So okay. So what's your background in international development? How did that influence your storytelling and perception of reality in your novels?
Hmm. I think, well, I started in the Peace Corps, which is a volunteer program that takes Americans overseas for a couple of years. And I started in Eastern Europe. And there was a lot of spirituality and mysticism then. And at the time, I found it a little bit frustrating because it seemed like, well, things were very out of control. It was in the 90s. The Soviet Union had just fallen apart. There was a lot of instability, a lot of chaos still. The governments were very corrupt. The police were there to rob you, not to help you. And so, the medical system was a disaster. So, kids were dying from stupid diseases that they shouldn't have and probably would not have in the Western world. And I saw people turning more and more to exorcisms and blessings as a way, I think, to try to get some control over their lives, even if it, whether it was real or not. And I found that very frustrating. But I also think later I thought, well, if that's the only control you've got, maybe that's really helpful. And also, I think, there's just a lot of kind of dark and scary things that happened because of all the chaos. And so that fed a lot into my writing and my understanding about how people react to traumatic experiences.
Yeah, right. So it sounds like people in certain situations, from what you've experienced, do reach for the spiritual in a different sort of way to be able to maybe even defuse what they're going through.
Yeah.
Mm.
And again, at the time, I thought I was just frustrated because I thought the situation should change, things should be better. But the fact was, the situation wasn't changing and things weren't better. So you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, that's right. You've got to do what you got to do for sure. And a part of that, I think, is what you've pretty much embodied in your novels. Then, in that case, is helping people find another way.
Yeah, I do believe, I think we have a lot more power in our own lives than sometimes we give ourselves credit for. There is a lot of craziness going on in the world,
Yeah.
that we don't control, but I think we have more control over us. And I think there are politicians and such who would like us to believe that we don't have any control over our lives and just kind of give up and be helpless. That was one of the themes in the series, is sort of nihilism. I don't like nihilism. I want it doesn't help anything. Giving up doesn't help anything. It doesn't make anything better. I don't think we should give up. I think we should try to make things better for ourselves. And it starts with ourselves, about changing our own lives. And when we make our lives better, it kind of spreads out in a ripple effect around us. And
Mm.
April is trying to, or my character, she's doing that in a sense. She's trying to improve her life, even though she's kind of going in a wrong direction, though she doesn't know it. And when she discovers a body, and originally or initially, she's thinking, okay, this is for the police, but it becomes more and more apparent that this is more personal to her and she has to get involved. She can't just let somebody else take care of it because it won't get taken care of.
Yeah, right. So she's compelled to launch into engagement with that story to pretty much find out more for herself in that case. Could you discuss the process of your writing compelling heroines who navigate complex challenges in your mystery books?
Hmm. Well, when I start envisioning a heroine, I kind of try to go to the root of it. Like, what is her
Yeah.
misbelief? What caused that misbelief? What is she going to have to overcome? And how is that misbelief affecting her behavior? It's all about what's the wrong-headed thinking, because we all have misbeliefs of some sort, and hopefully they're little, small, tiny, inessential or unessential things, inconsequential things. That was the word I was going for. But we do, and so that's where I start to develop her character. What's her flaw? And then I think of what's her greatness? What makes her wonderful? What makes her special? And how does that interact with the flaw? Is that something that she's a compensation device for the flaw or the trauma in her life, or is that something that came from somewhere else? And how does that all create her character? So I
Mm.
want people who are well-rounded, who are real. I don't want There are no perfect people in my novels because I don't think there are perfect people in real life.
Of course, yeah, but everyone has their own way in the world for sure, and sometimes that can be great, and sometimes that can be grating. So,
Yes.
now I've heard you say a few times misbelief. Can you give us a concise definition of that? What that means?
Uh, there are stories that we tell ourselves that are not true. They could be stories about who we are and what we're capable of. They could be stories about what the world is like, but we're constantly telling ourselves stories. We are storytelling creatures, even when they are stories we tell ourselves. And I mean, for example, I discovered some stories I had about my childhood were completely false, and I had to kind of, really go back and reassess what had happened and what that meant to me and what I needed to throw out about my view of the world and how people interacted with me or how I felt they should interact with me. Um, Gosh, you're putting me on the ropes with this one. It's very complex. It's complicated. Yeah, I mean, it's a very deep topic, but I think if somebody finds themselves making the same mistake over and over again, or getting in the same situation that they're not happy with over and over again, odds are there is some story at the root of it which is causing you to do that thing over and over again. It could be, a very simple story like, oh, people don't like me, so I won't do this, or I won't do that, and you won't speak up. It could be a more complicated story. But when you start looking at these things, these situations, and trying to dig into why am I doing that? There's always a why, and there's always a story behind it.
Why do you think that we tell stories to gain meaning in life?
I think there's just something about our brain that we are looking for patterns, and a story is essentially a pattern. It's, there's your hero, which is usually ourselves. We're the hero of our own story. There is some inciting incident, some, whether it's something good or something bad. And then there's a reaction to that inciting incident. And we're trying to build reasons for it. So one of my sisters was killed recently in a car accident.
Oh
And for the
no.
first 2 months, I just kept trying to figure out why. I mean, it was an accident. There's no why. There was no rhyme or reason to it. But my brain needed to find some sort of reason. And I was, digging into the accident, where did it happen, who was involved, and, was it raining, and all this stuff. It's like it was an accident. But for the first 2 months, I just could not accept that. I needed a story. I needed a framework. I needed a reason. I needed meaning, because the stories do give meaning.
Yeah.
And I think we are meaning seeking creatures as well.
Mm, mm. Okay. My condolences to you. That's pretty rough.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. What role does free will play in your storytelling, and how do you explore the power of choice and transformation through your characters?
I believe we all have free will, but we don't always exercise it. And it's not always obvious that we have free will, because we tend to run in patterns. Our subconscious or unconscious is on autopilot most of the time. We're not really paying attention. We get in the car and we drive to work. We don't know how we got there. We don't remember anything in between the house and the office. But we do have free will. We have to exercise it, and we have to realize it, and we have to wake up. And so my heroines are usually asleep at the beginning of the story, and then there's this process of waking up. And as they wake up more and more, they're able to exercise more and more free will and take more control of their lives and enjoy their lives more as well.
Right. Would that be like they're starting in unfree will and then moving towards free will?
Yeah, I mean, is the unconscious unfree will?
I don't know. I don't know how
I'm
to
not
word
sure.
it.
I mean, again, it's like we've programmed ourselves, and we can program ourselves with good stories or with bad stories. We can program ourselves with the belief that we have control over our destiny to a certain extent. You can get into the car accident, and that's all she wrote. But um, I think we do have free will, so gosh, why not exercise it? It can be scary taking responsibility for sure,
Hmm.
um, but I think it can be very rewarding as well.
Do you believe your characters in your books actually help people to discover their power in their own free will?
I hope so.
Is that
I
your
mean, I hope,
intention?
yeah, I guess I do. I mean, my first intention is just to write a good story that people will enjoy.
Yeah.
And then there's the other layers of, what am I trying to say here? Who is this character and what is she going through? And every protagonist is going through something. And I think that people will be able to relate to a lot of the circumstances, even if they haven't had those exact circumstances happen to them. You know, again, we're all alike and we're all different. Or we're all different and we're all the same at the same time. Um, so yeah, I hope people will be able to relate to her and take something from that. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from, well, this is a very new book, so I haven't gotten much feedback from it yet. But for my other characters, I get a lot of good feedback from women who say I related, just and that they enjoy seeing somebody who's going through challenges and who stumbles occasionally, but ultimately is able to beat them and overcome them. And I think that's inspiring.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. So how do you envision the future of genre fiction and the impact of your unique approach to storytelling on readers seeking engaging and thought-provoking narratives?
I think genre fiction genre fiction used to be very deep. We had, the Raymond Chandler's, who's considered pulp fiction. Now we read him today, and he's so deep. And I think we kind of went through this wave where the publishing industry in the United States, at least, got very corporatized, and the accountants are sort of running the show. And like, okay, people like vampires, so now we got to write vampires. And okay, people like werewolves now, so we have to write werewolves. It's all cowboys today, and less focus on the depth of the story and the characters and creating something that has some meaning. I mean, fun, but that people can actually chew over and enjoy reading over and over again instead of just treating it like candy. You read it once, then you throw it aside. But I think with the advent of indie publishing, more authors are just saying, no, I'm going to actually write what's in my heart and what I care about. And I know there'll be some readers who want it and some readers who don't, and that's okay. And I don't have to follow the prescribed, formula for a book. I just have to write a good book. So I'm hopeful for genre fiction. I think there was a sort of narrowing of it as the publishing industry consolidated more and more, and we're chasing the trends and the dollars. But I think with more indie publishing, it's expanding again.
Mm. Do you think there'd be a place in media for your books if you turn them into screenplays?
I, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking about that for Legacy of the Witch, and because it has those interactive elements, I'm not sure how that would work as a screenplay. I think some of my other books possibly, but I'm not sure. I think Legacy of the Witch uniquely has to be read. I don't even know if it would work as an audiobook, quite
Oh,
honestly.
okay. Okay. Just thought I'd ask because they do sound like they would lend themselves well to screenplays and be inspirational, I think,
Oh,
for
well,
readers.
maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is there any questions that I could have asked that I haven't asked as yet? Because I'm getting a bit thin on questions right now because I think we've actually gone super, super, super deep really fast. So
I think I spoke super, super fast, which I apologize
that's
for.
okay. That's okay.
No, you did go very deep. You really made me think with some of these questions, so thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, how can people find your books and more about you?
Well, I'm on all the major online retailers: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Google, Apple. My website is kirstenweiss.com. It's KIRSTENWEISS.com. And all my books are on there, so they can, and with links to where they can buy them if they're interested.
Excellent, excellent. So, what I'll do is I'll put all those in the show notes for this show,
Oh,
and I'll thank you, Kirsten, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you and learning about your books. And I actually think that books like these can be healing for people because basically when you sometimes you can pick up a book and you think I'm just reading this for entertainment, but then there's parts in it that change you. And I've had that through so many books in the past. So I'm certain that's what your books do for others too.
well, I really hope so. That would be
Yeah.
wonderful.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Kristen.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we'll say goodbye to the listeners. Well, that was an interesting and unusual talk with Kirsten. She's on a different sort of path when it comes to writing books by the sound of it. And I think that there could be some good text medicine in her writing. So if that's something that appeals to you, look up her stuff. It's in the show notes. And thank you so much for listening. And if you think of anyone that could enjoy something like this or needs to hear something like this, please share to that one person. That'll help me to actually reach others. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and bye for now.